Perspective.
All right, what's up, everybody? It's Shauna with Exploring the Paranormal Perspective, founder of Geeks Paranormal, or you can just call me Geeks. Everybody else does. I have a great podcast today because I have a wonderful guest. I have Christopher Michael, who has written a couple of books. One's not out yet, but it's going to be out soon. And not only that, he was in the military. So he's a military brother from another mother. So y'all welcome him here. Hi. How are
How's it
you?
going? I'm pretty good.
Good. Hang on. I got somebody popping in the chat.
Sister from another mister.
Yep. So, Christopher, you have been, do you go by Christopher? Do you go by Chris?
Just call me Chris.
Just call you Chris. All right. Yeah. I can do that. You have had so many horrors that you've already gone through yourself, much less what you're writing about. So go ahead and pop in and tell me a little bit about your journey from being an Army veteran to being an author.
It's a long one. Because it was like I had always written, like I was always writing, but I was always one of those guys that I would write, and it would be like kind of like the mood. It would just be going, and then life would just get in the way, and I would just drop it, and it just never got picked back up. I can't think of how many different like works that I've been working on that had just never happened. And this is probably since like before the military, like maybe even high school and stuff like that. So yeah, it's like it's always been that way. So I did the military that I was in from 2005 to 2017. So I mean, between guard and all that, I still am guard right now. But active duty for a long time, like about 8 years and stuff. And yeah, like then I got out and started into like my law enforcement job that I'm in right now. So it kind of was one of those things where the longer I was out, though, the longer I was having to start to deal with, you know, some demons and some bad times and things like that. And all of a sudden one day I was starting to write again, just kind of hit the mood. And then that work started to fall through. It was just kind of like, I can't do this. It's not doing any good. But there was one little piece of that story I was writing where it was sort of like an Easter egg, I guess you could say. And I was like, you know, maybe I'll just try a short story on something like this. And then that just suddenly spun. And next thing you know, it's like I had my first full novel that I finished.
Wow. So the inspiration that you got for your books, did that come from some of your time overseas?
Yeah, a lot. This one's in World War II, but so obviously, you know, I don't know if you noticed, but I'm not old enough to have been there. But
maybe in a past life.
Yeah, who knows, you know? But I don't know. It was like I wanted to make characters that like I could relate to, but then also the thing is I wanted them to have that sort of, I guess you could say, like common sense or like that training sort of thing. You see so many movies and books where people do dumb things for the sake of getting the plot to roll forward, or you're like, that was so stupid. Why would that guy have done that? Or things like that. And I was like, I wanted to write a plot where the protagonist actually has training or acknowledges maybe that he has training, but there's a reason maybe he is ignoring it. I wanted things that made sense. And so I did a lot of that stuff. It was like that, you know, kind of keep the common sense stupid type of thing.
Yeah. Well, your time over in Afghanistan, for it to influence your writing, did you have to do a lot of historical research on some of the stuff that you wrote about because I noticed you talked about the Nazis and you talked about how they were trying to, I'm not going to tell you guys what the book was about because I did read some of it. I didn't get a chance to read all of it, but oh my God, guys, y'all have got to read this book.
Yeah. The historical research is, I almost want to like say that I probably spend more time researching than I actually do writing. Like sometimes it's like I'll be in the middle of writing and just be like, hold on, I gotta check on that. Next thing you know, it's like I'm down, and and it's weird. Like there's so many things like when you think about like certain times of history and stuff like that, where maybe things weren't as well documented and things like that. Or it's like they're like, oh, historians believe this happened, this happened. And there's a lot of playroom, but like World War II is just documented ad nauseum. Like it's like, I mean, like somebody like spit on the sidewalk and it's probably like documented somehow. So it's like once you start going, the rabbit hole just spirals out of control. And then like sometimes that'll take it to where it's like you're like, crap, now I have to rewrite this entire section of the book. Like it's like that. So yeah, the research part is I don't know. I'm not going to go as far as to say that it's not fun, because it's definitely fun. It fills I'm a useless facts person too, so it's like it fills the bank with all kinds of useless facts. But yeah, it can also be a pain in the ass at the same time.
Well, isn't it awesome though, whenever you actually do your research and find the facts of stuff that maybe was misconstrued or not stated correctly through other means? I mean, kind of like now.
Yeah, it's, oh my God, like now it's like, there is a lot of stuff that you'll see. I don't know if it's sort of like, I guess you could call it like urban legend type of stuff, or just things where it's like maybe something might not have been true, but just people kept saying it over and over and over and over. And then next thing you know, it's like you've got books written all about certain topics or battle or somebody's acts of heroism or something like that. And then like when you actually do like a deep dive on the research, people are like, that never ever happened. And I don't know how it got to the point where people keep saying that it did, but here we are.
Right. I guess they wanted to keep saying it to make sure it's true. If you keep saying something over and over again, it makes it true, right?
Yeah. That was, I think that, as funny as that was, going back into it, I think that was actually one of Hitler's advisors said that it's like if you repeat the lie for long enough, then people start to believe it.
Well, right, because they were like once you do your research, you understand that they were doing this mass what was it? Mass hypnosis.
Well, it's like a psyop. Like it's like a psyop. Like they were basically, it's like it's propaganda and all of that stuff to like keep people, thinking one thing. It's like, and if you just keep telling it over and over again, especially I think in that era, you had a lot more ability to believe it, because it's like there weren't a whole lot of avenues for people that were hearing their propaganda to get alternatives. Now it's like, you're flooded with so many alternatives. It's like it's almost hard to know what's true, because you've got 50 different things.
50 different things, so many different places that you can find things, and you got to make sure what you're finding is true.
And all of them sometimes sound so equally ridiculous that you're just kind of like, okay, well, whatever it is, this is it's going to be retarded regardless.
Yes, definitely. Now, through your writing, you have like a little bit of a Lovecraftian flair there. What drew you to the Lovecraftian genre, and how did you put your own unique spin on it in your books?
That's kind of a funny one, and I've had people ask me this one before, and it's so weird because I can't tell you exactly what drew me to that genre. The first thing that I ever had an interaction with was of Lovecraft, and being a gamer, you probably have heard, but Call of Cthulhu. I remember playing Call of Cthulhu, Dark Corners of the Earth on the original Xbox, and thinking that, yeah, I know, right? It's like I'm dating myself. But
no, I'm older than you, honey.
Fair enough. But yeah, it's like the original Xbox, and I didn't even realize that was Lovecraft at the time. And then one day, I think I had like a long drive, and I was trying to find some audiobooks. I was scrolling through, and I remember I've always heard Lovecraft's name, kind of the horror scene and things like that. But then I saw Call of Cthulhu. I was like, oh, this is the game. And then I think that was the first time that I was just listening to his stories like while I was driving, and I was like, something about it. I don't know. When it's like you find a genre of something, or like just an author, or like a filmmaker, just anything, and it's like there's just something about it that really kind of catches you, and it just did that for me.
Oh wow. So whenever you started inputting that into your book, did you think that whenever you were writing the Danforth, because it's going to be a series, you've already got the first one, you've already written the second one.
Yeah.
So whenever you started writing it, was that one of the things you wanted to put into it, or was it just?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess like a little bit of a background on this is the character Danforth is actually a character that appeared in one of Lovecraft's old short stories. As a side character, it was At the Mountains of Madness. You ever see the? Yeah, of course you have. It's a stupid question, but you've seen the movie The Thing, the John Carpenter one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that one, I think it took a lot of influence from At the Mountains of Madness, like the Antarctica thing and stuff like that. But he was a side character. And so, like I said, this one just kind of came out of like an Easter egg. I think when I was writing another book, I had just sort of plugged this in there as sort of like an Easter egg, as like, oh, it's like, did you know that after this, it's like that happened to him and stuff. It wasn't meant to be a book, but instead it's like it ended up kind of, I don't know, being the one that I could actually keep going with.
Now, whenever you started writing about him, did he just sort of like, I don't know, take over your mind whenever you started writing, or was it? I mean, do you know what do you understand what I'm saying when I?
Like the character?
Yeah, the character.
I think so, because I had read the story before, like At the Mountains of Madness is one of my favorite ones, and there's something about the character in that one that everyone, like I've listened to different podcasts and things like that. Every time they're reviewing the story, the character Danforth really resonates with everybody, because one of the things about Lovecraft stories is everybody who's the narrator always seems to have this kind of weird tendency to like refuse to believe what's going on and like accept what's happening to them. They're always trying to be extremely logical. And the funny part is the character of Danforth is sort of the character that's saying what the audience is saying the entire time. So while this narrator's like, oh my gosh, it's like Danforth was like making some offensive like insinuations that what might have happened was blah blah blah, and you're like, he's making offensive insinuations because he's right. He's the only one who seems to know what's going on right now. Right. And so like everybody kind of likes the character for that reason. And so it was one of the ones where I was like, well, maybe I could use this character in the same kind of way where it's like he seems to have like a head on his shoulders and stuff, or maybe understands a little too much of what's going on, and maybe that can make him like interesting in another story.
You've got a lot of 5-star reviews on that book. I was looking through the review. Yes, I was looking through the reviews, and I was like, wow, they're really digging it, and they're really waiting for the second book to come out from what I'm reading on them. But
no, I hope I hope it doesn't disappoint, I guess.
Well, it hasn't disappointed them, and they're ready for the next one. And I'm what I'm reading so far, I'm getting into it, and it's been a while since I've been into a book. So this is your writing style is very impressive, and it's an awesome read so far from what I've read. But how do you balance the historical accuracy with the fantastical elements of Lovecraft horror?
Ooh, that's one of the hard ones. Like that's like the real hard one. Because it's like what I'm kind of trying to do is it's like if it's something where he's in a major something major that's going on, like historically documented and stuff, I put him into it and then I keep him in it and I keep the historical accuracy like 100%. Where it starts to deviate and stuff like that, I kind of remove him and isolate him away from the historical elements, but then I still have things where I'll do like an outline of my timeline and how I want it to go. And then what I do is right next to that one, I'll make a completely separate, historically accurate timeline of what was happening in World War II at the time of the story. And then I have to line them up so that each event happens as it goes and stuff. So what I said was, it was like, unless I can find absolutely no way of bending the story or something like that, I try to keep 100% historical accuracy throughout the entire thing.
Oh, that does sound hard.
Yeah, it's a pain. It's a pain. Like I said, it's like there's been things where it's like I've been writing, and then I was like, okay, and I start researching. I was like, oh crap. I was like, man, I completely overlooked that. And then it's like I gotta like rejig the entire book in order to like make way for that one.
Oh no. So that takes
Yeah.
a lot of time. How long did it take you
Mm-hmm.
to write this book?
The crazy part was it was like the other one I was writing on for the one that ended up getting dropped. I was probably writing on that one for a year. When I started on this one, I got this thing knocked out in probably less than 90 days. I was
Wow.
it was a very serious downtime at work, and what was
Mhm.
happening was it was like I was working weekends when there was nothing going on.
Mhm.
Um, and I was just like, well, you know what? It's like if I'm gonna work weekends and have to sit here on my butt, I'm gonna make good use of this like
Right.
time. And so it was like I had mandatory 10-hour days at work.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's like that was 10 hours of just hammering it out and having a good outline. It only didn't take me a whole lot of time to make the outline for this one. The second one's been a little bit more trying to kind of work things a little to be more accurate and stuff. But this one, it was like for the most part, it was just trying to like make sure that my locations, because it was like in Egypt and stuff like that,
Mhm.
and everybody likes researching that stuff, so it was a lot of fun.
Right. Especially
Hmm.
whenever you get to the pharaohs and the tombs and everything. Those are absolutely awesome.
Oh, that's one of my dream travel places.
Ah, so you want to go over there and see some of the
Um,
tombs and everything. Yeah.
if somebody said like, I have no want or need to go and see the pyramids, I'd slap them. Like, what is wrong with you?
Right?
Like
The paranormal aspect.
The Batman
Oh.
Robin meme where he's just like
Mm.
clocking him in the face or something like Egypt's boring. I don't think I would want to go there. Like, shut your mouth.
Shut your mouth, bitch. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Well, can you share a particularly chilling moment from the Danforth series that showcases the intersection of real world conflict and the Eldritch terror?
So let me see. One of the things that I did, it was fun making the book because it was like I wanted to make it. I wrote it almost like it's a World War II memoir, not necessarily that it's like something that's being like told from a third person or anything like that. It's like it's supposed to look like Danforth is basically just writing his memoir from when he was in World War II. And I did different stuff. Like I was able to write reports. I researched what the OSS reports looked like in World War II
Mhm.
and recreated them. And then I actually was able to snip Colonel Donovan's signature from that report, like
Ah.
and put it on there. So Colonel Donovan's signatures are on all these reports talking about Danforth stuff. And like I actually even have a transcript that matches an actual transcript of an interrogation of one of the Nazi SS agents and stuff. And like it's just going back and forth. And then like at the end of the interrogation, even though Danforth kept his identity hidden, the Nazi actually knows his name and
Oh.
says that it's like the outer gods know who he is and things like that and stuff. It's just it's a fun one. I love it.
Oh gosh, that is pretty cool. Now,
Mhm.
walk us through your writing process. How do you research and develop ideas for your novels?
So one of the things is like Lovecraftian horror and like just sort of like the Lovecraft universe is one of those universes I think that's sort of like a hidden gem. Like I said, it's like if you want a rabbit hole to go diving down and stuff like that for like all the different stuff, it's like one of the things that I did want to do though was not be like all the other World War II type of series and stuff like that. I feel
Mhm.
like, it's always very general, the places that they end up in World War II. Now, the first one is in Egypt, and I think I felt like I had to take my story and the audience there first because there's so much of Lovecraftian lore that goes back to Egypt and like Iram and Arabia and like all this other stuff. So it was such a
Mhm.
big part of like the lore and especially with the way that the US entered World War II, I
Mhm.
felt like I was kind of like, okay, I have to go there. But now with these new books, I'm trying to take people to places in World War II that people didn't really know a whole lot about that existed. Like the second one, he's going to be in Romania.
Ooh.
Yeah, so this one's been a lot of fun writing.
Oh my
I mean,
gosh.
especially with like Nosferatu just coming out and stuff like that. Like I was like, oh, this is a blast. Like I'll be like writing on it. Then like the next one, he's gonna be like in China, India, Burma.
Oh
I have
wow.
another one set with the Czech Republic, where there's a Holska Castle, where the Nazis actually in real life performed a lot of their like crazy occult rituals and stuff like that. So,
oh man,
yeah, it's a lot of fun, and there's so much like lore in the Lovecraft universe. And then as weird as it is, it's like World War II itself almost has like its own lore and weird, like just kind of weird aspects and stuff.
oh wow. My friend is actually married to a Romanian, so
Really,
I'm going to look forward to reading that one,
I
especially
hope
what you
I
come up.
hope it meets. Like I was always like, and I wish I knew somebody who was like an actual Romanian citizen. So it's like I could have them like read over it and be like, no, this is crap or something like that. Like I was like, I'd rather hear it before putting it out instead of like, like write it and then you're like you end up like looking at it as like, oh look, it looks like it pissed off the entire country of Romania on accident.
Nah, I don't think you could ever do that. Not with what, because you're pretty thorough with what you have come up with. What is what's the most challenging aspect of weaving suspense and atmosphere into your narratives?
Ooh, I'm a slow burn type of guy where it's like I like to start it off where you get very little information, and then as the information grows. So one of the things about Lovecraftian horror in general is the he always said that it's like the big aspect of Lovecraftian horror is like that fear of the unknown. It's like, and he even said in some of his letters, he was like, the less the audience knows sometimes, the scarier things can be. So what you want to do, especially like writing it from like kind of like a World War II memoir thing, is it's like I only want the audience reading it to know what Danforth knows, and Danforth still doesn't know everything about what was going on. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's like he just finds out more and more and more, and the more he starts to kind of go down these different rabbit holes on where he's investigating, like the more his mind starts to go. Because one of the things, like I said about Lovecraftian horror too, is it's this very it's kind of like based around the idea that it's like there's things in the universe and just in our world that are so far beyond our understanding and our ability to comprehend them that just to find out too much knowledge could drive someone to like madness or suicide.
Right.
So it's like it's like kind of this idea that the universe is full of like these like kind of nihilistic malign deities that really couldn't give a shit less about humanity. Like they're kind of like an ant on the floor, to this thing.
Yeah.
And just knowing too much about it is like your mind will break because you can't handle it.
I think that's a lot of things that's going on now. Too much shit.
The UAPs and stuff like that.
Yeah, like Project Blue Book.
How are you supposed to wrap your head around that? I love that they decided to drop that during COVID too, where it's like, oh yeah, it's like, by the way, it's like aliens are real. It's like, you don't think we have enough shit to deal with right now that you gotta tell us that aliens are real in the middle of like all this crap?
In the middle of a pandemic where you're trying to keep us in the house constantly and controlled. Yeah, no, that's not gonna work.
Oh, this is so horrible. People's minds are being corrupted by the internet. Oh, by the way, aliens are real. I mean, anyway, so the next thing we're gonna do,
yeah, right.
Like it was like, oh, great. So it's like you want people to go even crazier on the internet.
Exactly. Well, they were trying to make people crazy back in the day. You remember the Inquirer? Inquiring minds want to know. Like how many of this was actually real compared to what they're saying wasn't.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, like, that's the thing, right? Is like the Inquirer had all those like things where you're like, that's so loony. Right? Like, that wouldn't have. And now you're like, maybe
wait a minute.
had something.
They just came out that Aliens were real. Now what?
I loved the Inquirer when I was little, though. Like when my parents would take me into the store, it was so fun because it's like when you're going toward the checkout aisle and you're like, I wonder what kind of crazy shit they're gonna have on the cover of this thing too. And they're like, oh look, they caught the Loch Ness monster.
Right. That one, and then I remember one very vividly. It was like the dog mama. It was like a dog person that had puppies, and it was like,
I hadn't seen that one.
Oh, that one's very vivid in my mind for some reason. And it was like, well, I guess because I was just talking to a friend of mine about dog people and the Mothman prophecies and all that. But it was like, I remember seeing that thing, whatever it was, on a concrete floor with puppies. And it was like, where did they get these people?
What the hell is that?
Right? It's like, what the hell? But they had so many funny things on the front. I say funny things, but they also had a lot of the, I was abducted and I'm here to tell my story. And it was like,
and I still to this day, it's like I said, and one of the things I think about my writing that I try to do too, and kind of take the same kind of approach is like, I'm very logical about stuff. And one of the things like the Lovecraftian horror is everybody who is the narrator in all these stories, they're always approaching it from the most logical, scientific, hey, even though something crazy happened, I can explain that away with something. It's like, that wasn't anything until it's like stuff starts to kind of roll and roll and roll. And then you're like, oh no, like you can't explain that away, can you? But yeah, like there's still things with like the abductions where I'm kind of like, I still am on the fence about it. I'm still kind of like,
right?
Because it's like you always thought that some of these people were quacks, but then they're like, oh yeah, now the Air Force and the Navy have the Tic Tac and the fast mover video and like all that, and you're like, oh man, it's like because now that you see that this stuff is happening right in front of your eyes, are these people quacks or are they telling the truth and you just thought they were until now maybe they're getting validated? I don't know.
Well, they try to make some of these people look crazy. I mean, look at what they do
some
now.
Of these people don't help themselves out any, but
no,
like
they don't.
I was abducted by aliens. It's like, dude,
and this is what happened.
Yeah. It's like, are you sure you weren't on meth? Because that's what it looks like right now. like what, like Randy Quaid in the Independence Day movie and stuff that, where he's like all drunk and stumbling everywhere. Ever since I was kidnapped by aliens, I was like, oh god, here we go.
You're not helping your case, none, bub. Sorry.
Like even when aliens are attacking the world, he brings up like when he got kidnapped by aliens and people still roll their eyes, like they're like, oh, this dude.
We have to hear this again. I mean,
like, oh, we've heard it before, dude. Give it a rest, will you?
Well, in your stories, you brought up World War II. Why World War II? What got you so fascinated with this historical event that you wanted to write about it?
So one of the things that I liked about the Lovecraftian stories and stuff like that was it was like they all kind of take place in the early part of like the 20th century, kind of like that, early 1900s, 20s, 30s, things like that. And I feel like it was like they were so good in that respect because it's like I guess maybe that time period, there's still so much unexplored stuff. And I mean, when you think of like Indiana Jones and stuff, it's like from like the 1930s prior, it was like there's still so much unknown out there, I guess. And I feel like World War II and after was where so much globalization and surveillance state type of stuff and just so much stuff started to get documented and things like that it's like a lot of the unknowns of the world kind of started to go away. Even though there's still a lot of like unexplored places, it's like you still have like that kind of feeling like it's like after World War II, that's when it kind of fell off. But World War II itself has so much crazy mystery surrounding it in a lot of respects. And so being that I sort of resonated with the character Danforth, I was like, okay, his story, like at the Mountains of Madness, was in 1931. How about what happens if 10 years later World War II hits. What happens to these characters when World War II hits? And so then I kind of already knew, but I started to kind of be like, okay, well, what if like we used like the occult elements that are very, very prevalent in Lovecraft, with like, you know, hidden cults and like all this other stuff, and apply it to like the Axis. And then, but then like, man, that was when it really started going, was because once I started researching like the things that, like the Nazis in particular, but even the Japanese and stuff, like their obsession with like occultism, spiritualism, and like even like satanic stuff. It was like I said, the rabbit hole was so deep. I was like, man, there's almost limitless amount that could be done with that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like how were you able to do a lot of the research on World War II? Because I know whenever I done my own research with World War II and the concentration camps and everything, because I had a grandpa that was in the concentration camp. It was hard to find. Yeah, it was hard to find a lot of things because they had burned a lot of the information. So how were you able to find
the occultism part? So that's another part where it was kind of like you said, right? Where it was like certain things about Nazi occultism have been spun out of control, like crazy, like people writing books on it about certain stuff that's like it's not even confirmed to have happened. But then that also kind of opens up the door, right? Where it's like, okay, well, it's not confirmed that it happened, but not confirmed that it didn't. and like you said, it's like, and there's really a lot of documented things with like with Himmler. They had an entire, so Indiana Jones, the first movie, or I guess all of the movies when it had the Nazis in there, they had an organization even called the Enenarby, and it was actually a Nazi SS archaeological organization whose job was to go around the globe and find different artifacts and stuff like that that would basically prove the Aryan supremacy of the Nazis and stuff. So it's like, it was basically a way for them to create propaganda. If they could go and find this crazy biblical or occult artifact or anything like that, and then try to use that to basically prove that they had been descended of like some great superior race in the past or something. So it's like they ran around the globe all over. They were in Tibet hunting for like this evidence of a Yeti there, saying that it like might be, it might be the like the where the Aryan race descended from. They were in they weren't in Egypt as much. I think that was kind of a thing that was a little misunderstood, and because of Indiana Jones, everybody assumes, but they were in Hungary, all over Europe, so like less different parts of Africa, different parts of Asia, just all over the globe looking for all these occult artifacts. And then it said like what they would do is they would bring it back, and Himmler, who was the leader of the SS, was really obsessed with occultism, spiritualism, like trying to call like kind of malevolent entities out to do the Nazis' bidding. Like that's where the thing with Hoska Castle comes in. Was they had and it's true too. It's like with like scientific research, they said that the old legend is that a fissure to hell opened up in the ground, and there's a fissure under the castle, like from an earthquake or something, and that the castle was built over top of this hole that led to hell to keep the demons out. And then the Nazis took the castle. It's in the Czech Republic. They took over the castle, and they were like trying to summon like dark like entities and stuff during their time there.
Oh, because that's always great.
Yep.
Let's bring demons in it. Come on.
Yeah, I know. It was like, I'm sure that couldn't have gone bad in any way, shape, or
form. So are there any specific historical events or locations that's kind of sparked your ideas for the future novels? I know you said Romania and Czech. And that
Romania and Czech. It was kind of funny. I actually put out a poll with some of my my ex followers, like where would you like to see like one of the things go? Because I've got stories for like anywhere you can think of, but for some reason, a lot of the people that were following me said that they would really be interested in seeing China, Burma, India, so that was kind of interesting. I thought maybe it would be like so stereotypically going to like the Pacific Islands or something. Like it'd be like, okay, yeah, we've all been to this, we've all watched the Pacific on HBO or something like that. So it's like, let's do that one. But no, they wanted to see that. So I was kind of excited. I was like, okay, different place, different time. Like it should be fun.
That sounds fun. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
So you are ex-military. So
Yes.
in your time in Afghanistan, did you encounter any kind of local legends or folklore that influenced your writing?
So I have a whole other fantasy series that I'm writing right now. It's kind of, I'm not going to say it's on the back burner. It's kind of just being written as the time goes and stuff like that. But that one definitely was interesting. Like, definitely influenced by it because, like in Afghanistan, at least when I was there, it was like from what you see, it's like the people there believe in so many like crazy things. I mean, it's kind of one of the things where it's like that idea that it's like in different parts of the world, it's like, like spirituality is really part of the like the culture and stuff like that. It's like, so the idea of like there being like malevolent spirits, ghosts. I mean, like some of the people there in certain villages even believe with like the giants and the dragons and things like that. Like they believe that stuff. And they'll like even say like they'll be like, oh, you shouldn't go up on the mountain. It's like, why? And they're like, oh, well, there's this thing. And like even our turf would be like, I really don't know what that is or something. Like he's saying there's something up there, and then they'd be like, oh yeah, like blah blah blah. And he's like, okay, from the sound of what he's like describing, it basically almost sounds like some kind of weird troll or something like that. But if you go up onto the mountain at night, it'll eat you. Or like another one, they'd be like, "Oh, there's a dragon on the mountain that lives in a cave. If you go there, it'll eat you." It's like all these things, but it's like every single one kind of ties back to the moral of the story is don't go on the mountain at night or you're going to die. like okay, that's not fair. Like I mean, it's like one of the things where it's like you could imagine it being told to kids to keep them around. But then since there's not, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's they don't have that tie to education or some of this other stuff where it just, it spirals out to where people are like, oh yeah, it's like there is actually a dragon up on the mountain and stuff. So, and even some, they had like a big pile of stones and they said that there was a giant buried there. And they're like, there's not a giant buried there, dude. It's just a big pile of stones. And they'll be like, no, there's a giant buried there because there's people from this village who knew him or something like that. It's like, huh? Yeah.
Wow. Well,
And
it's
it's
kind of
like,
like that video you sent me, which it was talking about military personnel getting involved with the giant, and they were shipping the body of the giant back.
Yeah, I don't. That one's always been sort of like that urban legend. That's the other thing too, is like U.S. military create like sort of like their own urban legends there simply through like being sort of like in this place where there's like it's so ancient and so unknown and just in certain ways it's like you can see it. It's like it's beautiful, it's biblical, it's so, I would almost say pre-medieval in certain places that it sort of gives you that feeling. It's like this place is a place where there's so many unknowns and stuff that could be here.
Wow.
And there's some creepy stuff that happens around there too. So
did you experience any creepy paranormal stuff while you were there?
Yeah, there's stuff sometimes that you have a hard time explaining, and it'd be one of those things where like say sometimes like they would say that like a place was haunted. Like I know like the old Kandahar city they would say was haunted. Some other places in like Kandahar itself, like I feel like there's no place that they don't say has some sort of like haunted aspect, because it's like the place that there's very few places you can go there where somebody hasn't died in violence or something. And so sometimes you would just see things where it's like we would have like our FLIR, it'd be like white or black hot, so you can see when something is there and it's alive. But then you'd maybe see like a person or what looked like a person or something moving, but it's not the temperature that it should be or something. So you're just like, okay, maybe that's Taliban scouts. Maybe they're wearing something that's making it so that they're not picking up on the FLIR or something. I don't know what it is, but then nothing happens. And so you're just kind of like left wondering, it's like, what was that we saw that was like moving around that was cold. So yeah,
right?
there's some weird things. One of the places I wanted to see, I didn't get to see it. They have like the ruins of the I forget the name of it off the top of my head. We'll probably have to look it up, but it's called the City of Screams. I don't know if you remember seeing that from that one clip, but
I don't think I got that far yet.
Yeah, Genghis Khan, when he was conquering the Levant and stuff like that, he put this entire city to death. Like they just wiped the city off the map. There's only ruins there, and so now it's like they say, yeah, and soldiers said this, the locals say this. It's like if you stay outside the city and stuff like that at the ruins, it's like you can hear like people screaming and stuff like that from the old ruins there.
Wow, chills, man. Oh my
Yeah, it's
God.
crazy.
Well, how do you incorporate the sense of dread and uncertainty from the military experience that you've experienced into your writing?
So that was one thing, right? It was like, so when I was in Afghanistan, I deployed with a long range surveillance company, and it was like I was an infantryman, like paratrooper, and we were in these like basically like long range surveillance teams, and they're small teams, like 6 guys usually max, but sometimes we might have like 7 or 8 at the best. And our whole goal is like deep line reconnaissance. So sometimes it could be like up to 100 kilometers ahead of the forward line of troops. And there would be times when there's people passing by, a lot of people, and like they're coming through like these different areas of the mountains, like funneling fighters in there. And you're like 6 dudes, sometimes split up into like 2-3-man teams, and you just have to just sit there silently and just watch them go by, because you can't fight them. If you get discovered or something like that, if you end up in a tick, like, and you're not in something like a regular platoon or some size, then it could be bad for you. So I was always kind of like, I could maybe take that and incorporate that into my writing, where it's like, trying to convey that sense of like, the dread is right there, and it's just happening and happening and happening. And the only thing that's keeping anything bad from happening is you trying to keep a level head.
Right? Oh my God. That would be maddening in and of itself, trying to stay quiet and not be seen.
You're just like in a hole
gosh.
and stuff like that, like covered up with a camo net, like with a scope, and you're just kind of like, there may be like, 100 feet away or something like that, like walking down the mountain, and you're just sitting there like just watching them. So it's like,
oh my God. And anybody that's been in the military knows that if you're in a place where it's kind of silent, anything that is done can sound so loud.
Yeah, very. Especially like when you get up on like a mountainside too, and it's like the mountains there are like made of like this like shale shit, like this rock. So it's like even digging into it sometimes is damn near impossible. So it's like sometimes it's like you're literally just on the surface in like this crappy spot with like a tan camo net over you that you tried to spray paint to look like the mountainside.
Oh my God.
And you're just hoping that like nothing gives you away. Like it could even be the slightest thing. So we would take like our spotting scopes and like just anything, and we would put like burlap over them and stuff. So it's like the glare from the sun couldn't be seen, because even that, like if you're watching, if someone looks over and the right angle hits at the right time, he sees a glare, that's unnatural. That's not something that you're going to see in nature, and they're going to see you, and they know.
Oh God, that's scary. That is some scary shit. Oh geez. I never went overseas. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Yeah, you don't need to.
But yeah. Oh yeah. Anybody that puts their life on the line as a volunteer thing is always blessed to me. But that dread is just, oh my God. I can only imagine. It was dreadful enough doing practice shit in the military, much less having to do it for real.
Well, it's like if you don't feel that dread, sometimes it's like the war has a way of checking you and stuff. Like there'd be things where, we're there for a whole year, and so it's like I have some stories. They're sometimes it's like people will be like, oh, it's like you got like a few stories, huh? And it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, those few stories are sprinkled out through a whole year, where it's like in between that, I was bored as fuck. or like, you know, just getting complacent, like la-di-da-di-da, and like everything's fine. And next thing you know, your truck strikes an IED or something like that. And it's just like this shit gets immediately real, where you're just like, you realize that it's like, if you stop being on alert, that can be it for you. If you just decide like, you know what, it's like, screw it, I'm gonna just decide to cut across this area or something like that, because it'll be easier to drive. It's like, I've driven this thing 100 times, like, who gives a rat's ass? And then next thing you know, it's like your mind roller gets blown off.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Now, being out of the military, I know me being out of the military, I've been out of the military for over 20 years, and I still get like chances where I'm on alert constantly. And they call us conspiracy theorists a lot for some of the things that we sit there and on a high alert for. During your time of COVID and everything, did you ever have that sense of high alert, like, oh fuck, that something is about to go down, or they're trying to do something?
When I saw a video of drones in New York City that were like, had a speaker on them telling people to stay 6 feet apart, I was just like, what the fuck is that? I felt like I was in like some sort of weird dystopian thing. And then like cops beating the shit out of people for not wearing a mask or something like that. I was like, what in the world is going on right now? Like, I really did feel like, and then especially when it's like, it went on to COVID, to the 2020 election, to January 6th and things like that. And especially after, like, before the election, you had a whole summer of people burning cities and things like that. It's just that whole time frame. Like, so I feel like January 6th sort of was the, I guess, the thing where I was really scared that things were really going to go south, not because of the actual incident itself. I was like, okay, it's the incident itself, I was like, the 300 yahoos that broke into the Capitol and acted like morons,
and they
or something.
Necessarily didn't break in; they were let in.
It's like, oh yeah, and then like when you see the videos sometimes of like it's like they didn't even break. Most of them are walking around just like looking at stuff. Like, you had some of them that were committing criminal acts, but it's like, some of them were just like let in. But I think I was, even without knowing that, it was like, I didn't see that at first, but I think my heightened thing was, I was like, I even told my wife and family and things, I was like, they're going to use this as an excuse to ramp up surveillance on people, to go after people. And then when like guys like John Brennan would go on TV and be like, oh yeah, I think it's about time we start like
making
launching
the list.
Domestic. Like he was like a domestic war on terrorism. It's like, what's that supposed to look like? What, are you gonna drone strike some dude in his backyard or something? Like, give me a break, dude. So what, I mean, it did happen, but luckily I feel like, I think there was enough societal pushback in a lot of way to certain stuff, where, I mean, like, I really feel like it was like the last election sort of was people talked. I mean, and it was kind of like, okay, like I think they elected Joe Biden on the idea that he was going to be this sort of benign old dude that was going to take it back to the normal ways or something like that. And then it's like, then he turned out to be a senile old fart, and people were incredibly up in our business and making everything miserable. So it was just like, it was kind of like, well, that didn't turn out the way everybody thought it would, but we'll see how it goes. I feel like America's pretty strong. So
especially those with a lot of common sense. It's that's the thing. We got to have some common sense and actually look at the big picture instead of the small one that gets thrown in our face every now and then.
Oh yeah.
And being ex-military, we kind of know that, especially when it came to the mask, because I was telling everybody these masks aren't going to help us. And I was being called a conspiracy theorist and told I was stupid. I'm like, okay, I was just in the military in the chemical operations specialist where we study these masks and
and so, it's like, if you think that thing's going to save you, the only thing that's probably going to save you is putting on one of those stupid gas masks or something like that. Other than that, it's like, it's not going to save you, dude. Like, but I mean, people were just so willing to go
To
along
believe
with
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that's
to
the
the point
scary
where
part.
I think the thing is like you can see things where it's like there's people who didn't believe it, people who
Mhm.
did believe it, and then people who violently believe it.
The
And
violent
it's like
ones were the scary
there's some
ones.
lunatics about anything that you can
Yes.
think of. Like, it's almost like any sort of and I feel like it only COVID just sort of like jogged what was already going on, but it's like now I feel like any sort of controversial subject at all, you can see people who are just like puritanically violent about
Losing their minds
like
over it.
they just go nuts. Like one of the ones I've seen lately and stuff, especially going on like in the writing and author community, is
Mm.
AI, and it's like I'm like pretty, it's like I see what AI is, and it's
Mm.
like it's a very weird one, right? Because it's like that this technology is not going away. It's getting
Mm-mm.
augmented into everything. Um, so I guess it's like
Everything.
I don't use it. I haven't really like had like a whole lot of experience with it and stuff like that. But I guess I'm not super anti AI. I'm just kind of like I'm kind of interested, but I've seen Terminator too many times too, so I'm
Right?
always going to be wary. But there's people, man, it's like they are just like, and like I said, especially in the writing community, they are just so anti
Against it.
AI that like if you like even like the way that they'll be people that'll be like authors, they'll be like, what would you guys think about making like an AI trailer or something like that? And they'll be like, the fact that you would even ask something like that means that you're so not talented in any way, shape, or form to even consider AI. You're a piece of shit. Like just like they're
Wow.
lunatically, puritanically anti-AI to the point where it's like, one of the things about being an indie or self-published author is trying to sort of shake off those chains kind of like of the I guess you call them like the traditional publishers where it's like you
Mm.
have to do this, you have to do that, you have to say this, you have to say that, you have to change this. Everything is just so the
Got to
way
be
that they want it.
politically correct all the time. No.
Yeah, so it's like this. So it's cool with like the indie authors because you're able to write whatever you want
Yeah.
and put it out there and let people read your stuff. But it's like they already have people where like I was even reading like something on X and on Reddit where there's people who have already created lists of people who look like authors who look like they've even associated themselves with AI, and they're putting them on a list of
Oh
like
my
people to never
God.
associate with and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, that is some scummy shit right
That
there. I'm
is
sorry. It's like
scummy.
because it's just like all you're doing is like you're assuming that this person who's an indie author who maybe has never written a book in their life, you're assuming that they should have the exact same view on AI that you do. And just the pure fact that they would ask that question, wow, it's like you should have known what you didn't know. It's like, so you're going to burn for that. Like, it's like, man, y'all are just creating like lynch mobs in the
They
exact same way
are.
that anybody else is creating these lynch mobs, where it's like you're just looking for reasons to go after people.
Yep.
It's like just chill the fuck out, will you? Like, just
Exactly. I mean,
yeah.
well,
So
when AI first started coming out,
it still
because
trips
I
me out though. I don't like it. There's a
it
lot of
trips
things
me
about it I
out
really do not
too,
like.
especially how it's taken over. Like, have you seen some of the AI stuff that where they create music and they create the
Yeah, like
websites
videos
and
and
pictures and yeah. Now I can see where a lot of people can get upset over that because I
yeah,
myself am a graphic designer. I'm also a videographer and I do editing on videos
yeah.
and
So,
on
so it
audio.
kind of robs you of your talents
Yeah.
and your job, right? So it's like, and that's I feel like the authors, artists, that's where it comes from. And I
Mhm.
100% like agree. Like, I do not
Yeah.
think that AI should be writing your book. Like, I don't think
No.
that AI should be doing this and all that and everything. But
You can kind of tell
like,
though when AI writes stuff because it doesn't really have
oh,
any feeling or any
it's so
heart,
untalented in every
right?
way. Like,
Exactly.
oh,
Especially with images because you get some of these images that are just like you
it's like,
really
what is
look at it
that?
and as a
Yeah.
graphic artist you can see like I don't think that's
Does
supposed
he
to
have
be
4
there.
thumbs?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's
So
like
it's
you
like,
can see it, but it is going to be weird though, because it's like I feel like with the way that AI is advancing,
mm,
the things that we don't like about it or think that are weird about it, or the things that stand out about it, I feel like after maybe like the next or the generation after that, all that stuff's going to be fixed. And then it's like,
yeah.
then it makes you really wonder, it's like, are they, and then, then you got to think
Terminator.
about, yeah. Well, and
That's
then,
my
but
biggest fear is
I
Terminator
think the
because
other thing, not just the Terminator thing, but just how many people
mm,
will it put out of work? It's like how many
exactly.
artists or how many people will put out of work, because eventually we're going to have a young generation of people who will not know what it was like to grow up without AI.
Right?
And so they're not going to mind books that were written by AI. They're not going to mind pictures that are like drawn by AI,
Mm,
because as long as they've been alive, they look like masterpiece works of art.
right.
And it's going to be a very, very weird fight. And like
It
you said, it's like,
is.
and what happens when you tell this AI, hey, it's not allowed to do something anymore,
Right. Well,
and
you saw the interview with Elon Musk and that AI, right?
no, I
That
didn't see
robot.
what happened.
Well, there was a part on there, if I can remember correctly, I'm going to be able to get it word for word, but where he was asking about humanity and it was talking about how it needed to destroy humanity.
Oh,
So, and
great.
he was like, no, y'all need to stop making this. But now he's wanting to bring AI into a lot of things. And I can see where
Well,
bringing AI into a lot of things is okay.
I think the other
But,
thing too is like when you think about it, so there was one where it showed like I think it was a university. Don't quote me on what university, but
Mhm,
they tried to put malicious malware into something like Chat GPT, like American AI, right?
mhm,
And it saw it, eliminated it, didn't allow it to go through. But then they tried to put it into like I think it was something like the Chinese AI or something, and
mhm.
all the malicious malware was able to be to pass through all of its firewalls. So then it
Oh,
makes me think that it's like if you did have something like a Skynet type of corrupted AI, the
mhm.
only thing that might be able to fight it would be another AI and an army of programmers that had to like go up against it.
Exactly. And that's
It's just
scary.
because I
That comes
mean,
back to the mass hypnosis thing where you've
mhm,
got mass media throwing out one thing and feeding the minds of those that don't really care to research or anything, and they're only taking in that one thing.
TikTok.
So, yeah, so they're
Yeah.
throwing it into people's faces, and then you got the people like us that do research and actually look at everything as a whole and tries to find the factoids of everything. And
Oh, how dare you?
right, right,
How
oh
dare you,
God.
woman? It's like get the rope, get the stake, burn her, a witch.
Right, exactly. And it's like, oh my gosh,
When you tell people that their worldview that they have built is not correct, um,
they don't like it.
they don't like that.
They don't like it at all. And you are the worst scumbag to ever even bring up anything different
How
and
dare
have a different opinion. How dare
you?
you?
God,
It's
what
like,
was it? Some dude the other day he got on me too about something where it was and it kind of comes back to like my book and stuff. It was that Hitler escaped to Argentina and lived out his life there. And I'm just like, dude, I know. And he was like, oh well, and you bring up like these old research things from like 2009 where they said that a team went over to Russia to test Hitler's body, and then it wasn't Hitler's body that they ended up testing. It actually turned out to be a woman. Um, but then it was like in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, there Ava Braun was there, like everybody was there.
mhm,
There's a chance that maybe they just tested the wrong thing. But he took that, and then pretty much anything that happened after that never ever bothered to look, because then in 2018 they said that a French team went to Russia. They found the Russians allowed them to see the body, and they tested it, dental, DNA, all of that, and it was Hitler's body. But man, this dude would not relent. Like, he was just like, no, there was eyewitness sightings that saw him. Like, people see Bigfoot all the time too, bro. It doesn't mean that it was actually him. Like,
well, he also had a double. He had quite a few doubles. So
yeah, like,
couldn't it have been one of his doubles?
It could be one of his doubles. It could be another escaped Nazi. You know, it's like, I mean, they've had some crazy things I've seen on some like Discovery things and stuff. Like, I think I love Expedition Unknown. It's one of my favorite shows ever. But he went to Argentina, and they went to an old house that hadn't been explored since ever. And they dug around in like the grounds, and they found a Nazi coin there, which means that some asshole lived out his life there in Argentina without ever having been brought to justice. So, you know, it's like, you're so fixated on Hitler living out his life there. It's like, dude, there's other ones that did.
Yeah. Like, I know unfortunately, I had found that some of my ancestors over in Germany were Nazis, aside from my Opa, my great Opa, who wasn't. And you have both sides of the coin, and you want to make sure those are punished. The ones that sat there but then they want to sit there and bring that all into the American concept of how everybody is turning into Nazi. No, it hasn't got that far yet, y'all.
Yeah, people, that's one of the things I think that like drives me the craziest, right? Is just like, having done all this research and like knowing like who the Nazis were and like what they did and like all this other stuff and what their beliefs and how they came to power, all these things. It's like, to just hear some of these morons like running around like, you're a Nazi. It's like, you have no idea what we're talking about. Like, you have zero clue what you're talking about.
No.
So yeah, it's a very convenient thing to throw at people and stuff. So
it is, unfortunately, in this day and age. But on your book, it's called, you want to go ahead and say what it's called?
Sure. So it's got it right here. So we got Danforth, Eldritch Tales of World War II. The first one is Tomb of the Black Pharaoh. And the second one is going to be coming out soon. I'm actually in the talks with some people about it and stuff like that, so I don't want to give anything away. But just in case, it's like, whether or not it like talks happen, I'm still going to end up like putting it out regardless. So
because you're supposed to have it out tomorrow, but
and then like I said, started talking with some people. Sounded like maybe they might be interested, so we'll see what happens. But
that's exciting.
So but you know, if that happens, cool. If not, I'm gonna put it out immediately. So
awesome.
Either way, it's like everybody will get to read it. I'm kind of one of those people where I'm like, I'm not gonna like keep all my stuff hoarded in the closet or something like that. Like, for you'd be like, oh no, like I couldn't. It's like, no, if I put that much effort into writing it and stuff, I don't care whether it's a publisher or not. You know, it's gonna see eyes.
Yeah, good deal. Good deal. Now, the paranormal aspect, because I know that you're into the paranormal stuff too, especially with the stuff that you've mentioned on the books. We're not going to mention what you do because that's confidential, but some of the stuff that you have seen in your job now, what kind of paranormal stuff have you seen?
So mainly, I guess you could say UAPs.
Yeah.
So I was working in Texas on the southwest border. And I mean, it's just, man, some of the weirdness that happens, like when you're just like out there, like especially like at night, and you're just like by yourself and everything's like on the low. It's like, I mean, you know, that Texas sky is just amazing. But then sometimes it's like you see something